Hello, I'm Alex. Today's our guest is AJ, and from project of Silo.Finance. Am I right pronouncing this name of your project?
Silo.Finance, but yeah,
Silo.Finance.
it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Let's start with your background. Could you describe your way in crypto? How long are you? From which year, and what experiences?
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for hosting me. I've been personally in the crypto space since 2016. Uh, Multiple projects, multiple attempts. I have a background in economics and growth. I've led growth teams for startups before, and I've also consulted for projects, blockchain projects.
More precisely, what is your role in the team in the project?
And right now I lead the growth, so it's basically both product and strategic and engineering growth, which is basically using data, marketing, and product to build traction for our protocol and grow it exponentially. So this is my role. I work closely with engineers, but I also I interface with users as well. And so that's my role.
Is it somehow connected with your past experience before cryptocurrencies, or what have you done before this?
Yeah, I've led growth teams for startups. So usually startups have one big problem, which is how do we engineer product market fit? And solving this problem is basically growth engineering. It's looking at unique proposition and always, and you look at who's using your product, and you're trying to adjust your product to fit a need of your defined user group. And finding a protocol market fit is my role right now. We have Silo.Finance. I will talk a little bit about what it does and what it tries to achieve. But my experience in leading such teams, I think, helps a lot right now in what we're trying to do.
Great, great. And another question. Probably, have you ever launched or before take part in some project in your career, or it's just the first one and you're totally focused on it?
I've been involved in couple of in a non way in couple of DeFi projects. I've consulted for a couple of them. Also looking at in areas like how do we establish this product market fit, and of course there's part of the token model and looking at how the product is engineered and designed. But I can't reveal names, of course. But yeah, personally, yes, I definitely it's this, but never in a position where I am public about it and focused 100%. Previously was more of either participating in governance actively, creating proposals and looking at kind of how you grow those DAOs and the products underpinning them. But right now, I'm part of the core team, and we'll talk about it in a bit. And now this role is everything right now in my life.
Yeah, great. And were those projects unsuccessful? Some of them, or just all of them were successful?
Well, some are successful, some are not.
Yeah, the main question is what the lessons you took from those projects and not to implement in new Silo.Finance.
Yeah, well, a couple of the first lesson is don't fork. Just go create a unique solution. You can fork, but you need to engineer your unique proposition, unique selling value. It's what the product does. That's actually the main thing. Projects and always look at it long term. A lot of projects they launch with the purpose of just the immediate gain for founders or users, but they never basically look at the long term. Building a protocol is extremely difficult. You look at, for example, how leading protocols have evolved. They start with the V1, and for example, let's look at Uniswap. Uniswap V1 had so many shortcomings, but then kept evolving. It takes years. So that's like, and years of learning about who's the problems of your user. You're learning about actually your user first, and then what the problems it solves, and then you evolve it. So that's like the first lesson, do not fork.
But sometimes aping is not so bad thing, because you can be rewarded. Just remember the Uniswap airdrop for those who was one of the first users.
Exactly. Just if you get out early enough, yes.
Yeah. and if you're smart enough, just to find some vulnerables before it's exploited.
Exactly. Just absolutely.
So let's smoothly go to the project that we already started to discuss. The first question, it's just potential investors are seeking for some uniqueness of the product and how it's built. You've told that forking is not your way, and you're building from the scratch. But what makes you differ from already existing products?
Yeah, so Silo.Finance implements what we call isolated lending markets. Mm-hmm. So, and I'll explain a little bit the problem. Right now, if the problem in lending or money markets in general is that they do not isolate risk. So if you go to Compound or actually Aave or any of these leading protocols are fantastic. However, there is one problem in them. If anything bad happens to one of the tokens in the protocol, and they have around 30 tokens or token assets, if anything happens, everyone in the protocol is impacted. And that's what we call it, just a shared pool design, because the protocol is just one big pool. Anything bad happens in it, everyone is impacted. And we've seen that before. A few days ago, actually, there was an exchange on Twitter, and Aave delisted XSushi, and they delisted DPI, I think, as well, because they were alerted to some potential exploit that can happen that would have impacted everyone in the pool. Mm-hmm. So the risk is shared in those designs. Now that's a problem, because if you are an Aave user and it happens that you do not trust one of the tokens because maybe they will be exploited, and I explained a little bit what happened with the Cream, you should not participate. You just exit the pool, because you know that the whole pool is ruined right now. We've seen that with the Cream. Cream, I think it was Cream V1. I think that got exploited $130 million, and bad debt happened because one of the tokens in the protocol and the big pool got exploited, right? So they manipulated the price of it, and then simply they borrowed against it other assets and they ran away. So what we do here is that we solve this problem by isolating risk, by creating smaller markets. Each market will have actually 2 tokens only, and then we connect them all in a way that creates efficient and fluid market. So let's say the same attack that happened really to Cream or Venus before, where one token gets pumped up and then gets shorted. So there's a spike and there is a drop in the price. And this attacker borrows against this increased value in collateral. You cannot run away with all the tokens that you borrow. You probably will have like the risk is isolated to one token only, not the entire pool. And that improves a lot on existing lending protocols. So now, because of this design, because risk is isolated to only the bridge asset and one token, I'm not gonna go technical here, but because the risk is isolated, technically you can use any token as a collateral to borrow any other token. So you can use token A to borrow token B easily. So now you've got all of a sudden money markets for all token assets, not only for the top 30 that Aave serve or Compound serve. So this isolated risk design, first of all, protects against risk by design. not by governance watching what token should be added or what token should be removed. That's huge because right now, for instance, just look at Uniswap. Uniswap, it's governance minimized. You don't have to watch every single liquidity pool for attacks, right? It's just launched and people use them. And we think this is the future of lending. The future of lending is basically a protocol, which is, in our case, we think we're going to be the future of lending. So Silo.Finance, we think the future of lending is, number one, secure. Risk is isolated. They're not combined, not systemic. Number one, efficient, meaning you can collateralize asset A, borrow asset B, no problem. 3, for all crypto, it scales. It's not only for the top 20, top 30. So we think this is the future, and this is what we're trying to build. And actually, we've built. And right now, I'll probably tell you a little bit about our roadmap, but this is what we've built in the hackathon in 3 weeks. And after that, right now, we kind of finalizing that code base for an audit.
Does it mean that each market first means a token back when you deposit, and B creates their own internal AMM for switching, for swapping one asset to another when you are trying to lend or borrow money?
No, there's no switching. What happens? Let's say you have the Uniswap or Uni market, and you have also another market for balancer or BAL, right? What happens is that you deposit Uni in the market, and you borrow, or technically the protocol actually creates a debt position for you where you deposit Uni and then you borrow ETH. This is an example. We call this ETH the bridge asset. It's one asset across the protocol. And then your ETH, you just borrow them against your Uni, we deposit them, and then you borrow balancer. So now people who deposited balancer or an ETH in the balancer, they're simply protected against the ETH that you deposited. So this means that if anything happens, we just technically sell your Uni collateral and settle your ETH debt, because you're basically not exposed to the BAL, the balancer token. So it's not an AMM. We do not sell ETH and buy balancer. We just collateralize ETH to borrow balancer from other users. So those users are not exposed to your Uni. So anything that happens to the Uni that you collateralize, we don't care, because you're exposed to ETH as a balancer depositor, right? So everything happens, we just sell the ETH, or technically, I mean, it's the ETH that protects the balancer, the BAL token. So we do not sell. It's not an AMM. We just switch. We create 2 positions for you, and ETH kind of gets on each side of the position that you create.
It means that you're fixing the ratio of your deposit Uni and your collateral ETH. Yes, it stays the same, this fixed ratio. And if the price is going up, how it supports the same ratio? Because its value is changing.
Yeah. So So when you deposit Uni, you technically borrow ETH. So that's position number 1. So number 1, and then you take you take ETH, and then you deposit ETH, and now you borrow balancer. So now you have 2 positions. You basically borrowed ETH, and then you borrowed balancer, right? So you have 2 positions separated. They're not connected at all. They're just 2 separate positions. And yes, you have to balance these 2 positions. If something happens, for example, Uni price goes down, well, we have to liquidate your Uni to pay off your borrowed ETH. Same thing. If ETH goes down in value, that's the second position, and you borrowed balancer, and now it does not cover the debt of the balancer token, we basically liquidate your ETH. And the money goes back to the balancer depositors. So basically, technically, we are not switching the token. We're just creating debt positions and 2 debt positions. And this is how we link these isolated markets. But now you've got two isolated positions. They're not combined. So if anything happens to Uni, nothing happens to Balancer. If anything happens to Balancer or ETH, doesn't impact your basically liquidity providers. This is how we solve this problem by separating. You've got to in order to isolate risk, you've got to isolate your positions as well.
But for users, it creates, let's imagine, corridor of the price where you'll be liquidated here and you'll be liquidated here, and there's two lines where your position got liquidated.
But this problem is easier to solve. You can technically create mechanisms for automatic rebalancing. You can rebalance. That is not a problem. The biggest problem is risk, and I think we've solved this problem by design. So the user doesn't need to, does not require the user to do a lot of intervening at all in this process, or governance, and for this matter.
Yeah, it's a really huge problem, and it's also could be covered by some insurance protocols. How we compete with this covering risk as well, because insurance protocols, they also cover some bad actors and provide some benefits for vulnerables from hackers and stuff like that. Have you learned this problem from this side?
We have researched all the possible attacks that can happen in the lending space. And number one problem comes from price oracles. Actually, we've seen that before. We've seen that in the Black Thursday of March 2020, and that actually gives a clear case what can go wrong. But that's the problem of DeFi in general, not only for lending protocols. But about insurance, yes, we think for users, and especially because now we are going to have money markets for risky tokens. So the tokens that just launched yesterday, it's permissionless. Anyone can create them, right? So for example, let me give you just an example. Let's say X token launched yesterday. You don't know if it's going to be a rug or it's going to be a safe project. You still don't know, right? Most of the time. But now this project has a community. They believe in it. So they will go to Silo.Finance and they will deposit the token, and they will also deposit some ETH in it, because again, each silo or each market that we have is always have ETH and the token itself. So this is how we bridge the entire protocol, and they believe in it, but they still don't know if it's going to be risky or not. Now, yes, you can rug. If the project is bad, you dump the token and you rug, very much like Uniswap. Insurance here, it's some insurance protocol might cover this. Some insurance protocol might not, because this is not an exploit. This is not an exploit of Price Oracle. For example, a few days ago, I think there was an exploit to Rari's Fuse pools, and it's not an exploit of the protocol. Protocol is actually did not get exploited. The Price Oracle in Uniswap v3 got exploited, and I think Nexus Mutual offered some sort of insurance if you've got if you had coverage.
Yeah.
So exploits, yes, but if someone is going to rug, there is no insurance for that anywhere. But with some mechanism design on our side, we can explore, and we definitely have it on the roadmap, explore different types of mechanisms to incentivize coverage. We can create coverage across multiple platforms for our users to buy it, and they choose where to buy it. That is definitely very, very important for us.
Yeah, it's looks like a really complicated product itself when you're balancing two pools and make some lenders and borrowers. And one of the main questions is there any place for token in this whole system? Because sometimes it looks like protocol itself works very well, and the token is not need to be here. And what is the purpose of a token if you will launch it or somehow create for the Silo.Finance?
Yeah, well, we don't have any plans for a token at the moment. We are actually focused on the code at the moment, and we're exploring some, we're working on the roadmap as well, and we're building, and we hope to launch in December. Is really in a month and a half time. So we have not discussed this. We don't know if this is needed or not. So this is something that we have not touched on. But in general, if for any project, that's what I personally believe. This is nothing. We have not discussed this. Internally, but for any project, it has to be decentralized. It has to be governed by the community, and governance models require the implementation of a token. You need a token. Now, what you design in the token, it's an evolving process. You start with governance, but then you can always add mechanisms, incentive mechanisms to basically use that token, or even to create more utility for the token as you go. This is part of the protocol market fit. You want to create a mechanism to encourage users to participate in governance, not just to farm the token and dump it. That's actually a extremely bad implementation of liquidity tactics. So this is again, I think we have we understand how you should build projects for the long term. And I think definitely at the center is decentralization.
Because why I'm asking, one of the purposes of creating the token is invite more funds for developing, because sometimes everyone is human and we need something to eat, and we need money to cover these expenses. And sometimes the token is utilized just to for investors, just to bring the money to the project and develop on this money. It's not a secret how your project is funded and how you cover your team and expenses.
That's correct. That's correct. But teams, yeah. So look, I mean, it is a complex problem because I think, in my opinion, again, this is not something related to Silo.Finance, but yes, you need to make sure that Treasury has enough money and to support the development of the protocol. That's number one requirement for sure. At all times, it must have enough funds to do that. That's number one. Number two, this funds that it keeps has to be diversified portfolio. So if anything happens, you still have funds that you can utilize, and you don't have to dump your token if the market does not allow it, or simply the market is too volatile. So that's number two. Number three problems right now, and I think everyone should look into it. There's always do you rent liquidity or do you own it? We see that in DeFi 2.0. It's actually something I personally believe, that yes, liquidity reward programs are actually fantastic. They're very good, but have to be designed conservatively. You have to design really well and deploy them in a way that it does not impact the future of your token. Because eventually the rewards programs is basically you're exchanging the ownership of your DAO for liquidity. But then what happens after a few days of farming? People dump the token and all of a sudden you don't have any future, especially if you've sold a lot of this, your token in exchange for some liquidity. So the solution is actually to own your liquidity. The DAO itself, to own it so it can direct it. This is exactly what you guys are doing. And so because technically you are kind of a liquidity protocol, and that's exactly what every protocol has to do, either own it or simply source it from places where you trust that it's going to stay there for a long time to support the growth of the protocol, not going to leave the next day. And we've seen these solutions. We've seen Tokamak. We've seen we've seen other projects as well. They're solving this problem. So now at least DAOs have multiple sources to actually source liquidity, and not just give your token, and then after a couple of days or a couple of months, liquidity evaporate the moment that your rewards stop, or you stop emitting rewards. So yeah, this is again, this is a personal view, I think. So now you build a DAO with diversified portfolio. It owns liquidity, or at least it rents it from trusted sources. And now it's sitting. You sit on enough liquidity to execute your plans. And now the future of the DAO is secured, and the user or token holder is not in fear of this token or tokens they hold is going to crash tomorrow. So this is very important also to establish trust.
Another thing, you also mentioned the DAOs and how you're building, because in regular DAO there's some voting tokens or voting rights. How to be the member of this DAO, and what is the mechanics of this DAO?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely, and it's still in research, really. There are many governance models out there, but I'm in favor of encouraging users to participate and reward them based on their participation. So we see people spending, I myself sometimes spent 5 or 6 hours or 10 hours just writing one proposal. Those users should be rewarded differently from simply someone who has just delegated their vote or simply staked in the DAO, but they're not doing anything. And that's not bad. It's good that you've staked your token, or at least now you participate in DAO, but there are different roles in the DAOs. And users should be rewarded accordingly. And this is basically the mechanism of it goes back to the idea of how do you design a token model that encourages such behavior in the DAO.
So great. And on your webpage, I've seen the team consists of 8 people. Am I right? Or it's
not? 7 people and 1 advisor, correct.
Yeah, great. And all of them primarily are engineers. Am I right?
Yeah, yes, yes. I'm the only team member, and with another ops core member as well. We're the only business people. The rest are engineers. So that actually was a monumental milestone for us. We assembled a team fast, superstar team actually, senior smart contract engineer, and with a lot of experience. It's very important for us because we're building technologies. It has to be tech-heavy team.
Yeah. And what is the experience of this team? Because if you're building the solid project, it should be the solid experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The team have worked on in DeFi for a long time, in these DeFi products primarily, from AMMs to you name it. So we're definitely a DeFi native team. And the business people like us and our advisor, we've been in this space for quite a long, so we understand DeFi well. We understand why an isolated markets lending protocol is needed. We've seen, so you have the understanding we have the why, and you know how to build it, and now you've got the engineers to build it because they also engineers or lead developer understands the problem. So there's also business understanding and technology understanding as well. Yeah.
It's from my experience, it's really key point when you need to connect the business logic and engineers in one place, and check if everything is going right. And if you're capable to answer this question, do you know the stack of technology stack that your team is using?
Yes, I do. We're basically building. I mean, I know where we're building. We're creating a modular design, and this modular design for our isolated money markets are deployable on mainnet, of course, and any mainnet compatible, any EVM compatible sidechain, any L2 and even beyond. So this is what we're building. In terms of the specifics of how we're building this scalable project, I know what oracles we're using, but I don't know kind of, it's definitely backend minimized, but that I not very much involved in those architecture decisions.
Shortly, the whole logic is happening on the smart chains or on smart contracts.
Oh yeah,
without the backend, I think.
Gotcha. Yeah, exactly. Without, yeah, we've during of course the hackathon, we've used Alchemy, and the team, we actually connect very closely, and but I don't know if it's still the case or not, but anyway, yeah.
Great. And as a growth lead, will you develop it further, or you will just leave the project as it is and probably find someone who will be doing it? What's your ambition personally about this project?
Oh no, no one is leaving. We have talked about this. The problem right now and also users, the community needs to know that no one is talking about this. It's rarely that you've got a team dedicated on the project. A lot of teams, they work on multiple projects, and I'm not criticizing that. That's fine, but you need to disclose that, right? You need to tell people like, hey, I'm involved in 50 projects or 10 projects. No, we are focused on this protocol. We are going to build it V1, V2, V3, V4 for years to come, because we want again to do lending markets exactly like Uniswap did to liquidity pools. So kind of democratize it, just scale it. But that's a problem. It's a huge one. So it takes years to solve. So we need the support of the community. We need to make sure our team stays on the project, fully dedicated, 100%, no side distractions at all. And we have made sure of that. Of course, we will soon. But if at one point this protocol becomes decentralized, and that's again my personal view, not teams, we will remain actively 100%. But now you're taking your feedback not only from the community but from basically everyone else. So you're not the ultimate decision maker. You're in kind of you're a thought leader in the community. We will always share our view how we should evolve the protocol, but eventually the community should decide how to pursue it. Personally, I am here for years to come, because I want to at one point, if I decide to leave personally, I'll look back and say we've built the largest lending protocols in DeFi.
Yeah, and if we'll continue talking about the community, how to become community, how to support for it now, because it's interesting for our watchers right now how they can join and support. Somehow, do you need some testers or something like that?
Yeah. So we have a zero marketing policy. We do not pay influencers. We do not pay anyone to write about us, and we will not. Again, if at one point we decentralize, the community decides differently, that's different. No, so what we do is that we're asking everyone to join our Discord community. That's our focus. Tweet about us a little bit. Tweet, talk to your communities, your friends. And we have like a simple program that I'm working on to incentivize them or to reward them eventually. We have not decided on the mechanism yet, but we're asking everyone to join our Discord, grab our Twitter handle, retweet about us, just tell your friends what you like about us after you've read a little bit about us, of course, and then just give us your wallet address and we'll see what we can do later.
Is it mean that you will launch some ambassador program or something like that?
Everything is possible, but I am sure that we will reward our early supporters, and we're not in rush. We don't want to create an undeserved or unworthy hype. We want to create steady growth in everything, steady, and we want the community to be built around our principles, and then we integrate the principles as well into the project. We don't want honestly users that want to flip a project if something, we want the users to believe in us and contribute. So that's why we're not in a rush, and that's why we kind of building it step by step.
Yeah, great. And as a one final question, could you tell some advices for those who will join to your community, and what they should do?
Yeah, with regards to us, I would say just learn a little bit about. We have a knowledge base inside our Discord. Learn a little bit about lending. If you lend on any protocol, just read a little bit about the risk, and learn how we're different. And also, we just published a docs center yesterday. There is also a post about the risk in our protocol and how it is isolated, how it works exactly. But then just a glance, learn a little bit, and then if you like us, talk to your friends, stay in the community. But in general, as the community, I would say we all have to educate ourselves about risks, about security, about how we actually protect our protocols. And there is no other way. No one is doing it. Very few projects spend time and effort to educate their users. And it's yeah. So that's my advice: is to be careful. Do not hype into. If you see that's my rule, actually, personal rule. If you see an influencer with 400, 500,000 followers on Twitter shilling a project, question immediately the project. Because good projects, I'm not saying that's a rule, but good projects generally do not hire those influencers, because if you look on their timeline, you'll see that they shill every single project, some of them even rug. So question the authenticity of this person immediately and do not hide. Just protect your assets, because DeFi is here and it's going to be here for eternity. And you'll get a lot of opportunities to make money on good projects, but be careful. Your project is fantastic, and you go there, you immediately discern or you understand the quality of it, and that should be a standard. So if you want to hype into other projects, just make a comparison. Just look at how communities interact. Look how they spend their marketing money. Look at read the docs. It's very important that we read and understand. That's kind of my advice personally. This is actually what I follow personally.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time today. Today we had AJ, growth leader of the project Silo.Finance, and see you next time.
Thank you so much, Alex. Appreciate your time, and look forward to talking to you more in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.